Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's debate on the topic of the arrival of modernism in India and its impact on architecture. We have four esteemed debaters with us: Aryan, Madhusudan, Pawan, and Rahul.
Modernism arrived in India during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as the country underwent significant social, political, and cultural changes. This period marked a shift from traditionalism to new ways of thinking and expression, influenced by global developments in art, literature, music, and philosophy. The arrival of modernism in India was shaped by various factors, including British colonial rule, the spread of education and Western ideas, the influence of Indian intellectuals who had studied abroad, and the emerging nationalist movement. Modernism in India was characterized by a break from conventional norms, a rejection of traditional forms, and an embrace of experimentation, individualism, and cosmopolitanism. Thank you, moderator. Modernism in India has brought significant advancements in architecture, with innovative designs and technologies that have transformed the built environment. One such example is the Lotus Temple in Delhi, which is an iconic modernist building known for its unique design and use of modern materials. This building represents the arrival of modernism in India, as it breaks away from traditional architectural styles and embraces a more minimalist and futuristic approach. Modernism has also been reflected in the Indian Institute of Management, IIM, in Ahmedabad, designed by the renowned architect Louis Kahn, which showcases modernist principles of functionality and simplicity.
Thank you, Aryan. Now, Madhusudan, present your arguments against the arrival of modernism in India and express concerns about its potential negative impact on traditional Indian architecture and cultural identity.
Thank you, moderator. While modernism has brought innovation to Indian architecture, it has also posed challenges to the preservation of our rich cultural heritage. Some modernist buildings may not be sensitive to the local context and disrupt the traditional urban fabric or aesthetics of Indian cities. For example, the high-rise glass and steel buildings that dominate the skyline of Mumbai can be seen as an imposition of Western architectural styles that do not reflect the local culture and context. We need to carefully consider the balance between modernity and preserving our traditional architectural identity.
Thank you, Madhusudan. Pawan, present your arguments in favor of the arrival of modernism in India, but also acknowledge the need to balance innovation with the preservation of cultural heritage.
Thank you, moderator. The arrival of modernism in India has indeed brought innovation and progress to our architectural practices. For instance, the Sabarmati riverfront development in Ahmedabad is a modernist project that combines modern design with sustainable and culturally relevant features. It showcases how modernism can be integrated with local materials, techniques, and design elements, while still respecting the cultural heritage of the region. This is a prime example of how modernism can coexist with traditional architecture, striking a balance between innovation and preservation.
Thank you, Pawan. Finally, Rahul, present your arguments against the arrival of modernism in India, citing examples of Western influence and potential loss of Indian architectural identity.
Thank you, moderator. The arrival of modernism in India has brought with it a strong influence of Western architectural styles, which can sometimes overshadow our indigenous architectural identity. For instance, the proliferation of glass and steel high-rises in cities like Delhi and Mumbai may be seen as a replication of Western architectural trends, neglecting our own rich traditions. We need to be cautious of the cultural disconnect that modernist buildings can create with the local community and prioritize the preservation of our unique architectural heritage.
Thank you, Rahul. Now, we will move on to the cross-examination round, where debaters can ask each other questions to further clarify their thoughts. Aryan, you have the opportunity to ask one of your fellow debaters a question to clarify their stance or challenge their viewpoint.
My question is for Rahul. You mentioned that modernism in India can overshadow our indigenous architectural identity. Can you provide specific examples of modernist buildings in India that you believe have neglected our traditional architectural heritage?
Absolutely. One example is the Imperial Hotel in Delhi, designed by an American architect, which reflects a colonial-style architecture that is disconnected from our local context. Another example is the Connaught Place redevelopment in New Delhi, which replaced historic buildings with modernist structures, resulting in a loss of the original architectural character of the area. These are instances where modernism has prioritized Western influences over our indigenous architectural identity.
Thank you, Rahul. Pawan, it's your turn to ask a question to one of your fellow debaters.
Thank you, moderator. My question is for Madhusudan. You mentioned concerns about the potential disruption of traditional urban fabric by modernist buildings. Can you provide examples of specific modernist buildings in India that you believe have disrupted the local context?
Certainly. One example is the Hiranandani Gardens in Mumbai, which is a large-scale modernist residential complex that has been criticized for its lack of contextual sensitivity. The uniformity of high-rise buildings in this development has transformed the traditional urban fabric of Mumbai and has been seen as disconnected from the local architectural and cultural context. This raises concerns about the loss of local identity and character in the built environment.
Thank you, Madhusudan. Now, Rahul, it's your turn to ask a question to one of your fellow debaters.
Thank you, moderator. My question is for Aryan. You mentioned the Lotus Temple and IIM Ahmedabad as examples of modernist architecture in India. However, these buildings have also been criticized for their high construction and maintenance costs. How do you justify the allocation of resources to such modernist projects in a country like India with pressing socio-economic challenges?
That's a valid point, Rahul. While it's true that modernist buildings may come with higher costs, they also bring economic benefits through tourism, employment generation, and technological advancements. Additionally, modernist architecture can serve as a symbol of progress and innovation, projecting a positive image of India on the global stage. It's important to strike a balance between the costs and benefits of modernism in the Indian context and prioritize the needs of the local community.
Thank you, Aryan. Madhusudan, it's your turn to ask a question to one of your fellow debaters.
Thank you, moderator. My question is for Pawan. You mentioned the Sabarmati riverfront development as an example of modernist architecture that respects local culture. However, some critics argue that it has resulted in the displacement of marginalized communities. How do you address these concerns?
Thank you for the question, Madhusudan. It's true that large-scale modernist projects can sometimes result in social and environmental impacts, including displacement of communities. However, it's important to approach such projects with a holistic and inclusive perspective, involving local communities in the planning and decision-making process, ensuring fair compensation for displaced communities, and mitigating environmental impacts. The Sabarmati riverfront development is an example of how modernism can be implemented with sensitivity to social and cultural aspects, but continuous monitoring and community engagement are necessary to address any potential negative impacts.
Thank you, Pawan. Now, we will move on to the rebuttal round, where each debater will have the opportunity to challenge or refute the arguments made by their opponents.
I want to challenge Rahul's argument that modernism in India neglects our traditional architectural heritage. While there may be some examples of modernist buildings that prioritize Western influences, there are also many modernist projects in India that incorporate local materials, construction techniques, and design elements, while still being innovative and progressive. For instance, the Indian Institute of Management Bangalore, designed by architect B.V. Doshi, showcases a modernist design that seamlessly integrates with the local context and respects the traditional architectural heritage of the region.
I would like to rebut Pawan's argument about the Sabarmati riverfront development. While it may be presented as an example of modernism that respects local culture, there are concerns about the displacement of marginalized communities and environmental impacts due to the massive scale of the project. The need for sustainable urban planning and inclusive development cannot be ignored in the context of modernism in India. We must carefully assess the social, economic, and environmental implications of such projects and prioritize the well-being of all stakeholders involved.
I would like to respond to Aryan's argument about the economic benefits of modernism in India. While there may be economic gains through tourism and employment generation, we cannot ignore the fact that modernist architecture often comes with higher costs, including construction, maintenance, and operational expenses. In a country like India with pressing socio-economic challenges, we need to carefully evaluate the cost-benefit analysis of modernist projects and ensure that resources are allocated judiciously, considering the needs and priorities of the local community.
I want to challenge Madhusudan's argument about the disruption of traditional urban fabric by modernist buildings. While there may be instances where modernist projects have resulted in the loss of local architectural character, it's important to acknowledge that modernism can also contribute positively to urban development by revitalizing deteriorating areas, improving infrastructure, and creating efficient and sustainable spaces. For example, the High Court of Punjab and Haryana, designed by Le Corbusier, is considered a masterpiece of modernist architecture that has transformed the urban fabric of Chandigarh and become an iconic symbol of India's modernization.
Sure, here are some more examples of modernist buildings in the Indian context. First, Lotus Temple, Delhi, designed by Iranian-Canadian architect Fariborz Sabah. The Lotus Temple is a modernist masterpiece and an iconic symbol of modern architecture in India. Its unique lotus-shaped design with white marble petals is a fusion of modernist aesthetics and spiritual symbolism, making it a prominent landmark in Delhi. Second, Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, designed by US-based architectural firm Perkins Will. The Indian School of Business in Hyderabad is a prime example of modernist architecture in the field of education. Its contemporary design features clean lines, open spaces, and extensive use of glass, creating a conducive environment for learning and innovation. Third, Infosys International Education Center, Mysore, designed by Indian architect Hafiz Contractor. The Infosys International Education Center in Mysore is a striking example of modernist architecture in the corporate sector. Its sleek and futuristic design with glass facades, atrium spaces, and sustainable features reflects the global aspirations of Indian businesses. Fourth, Adarsh House, Mumbai, designed by Indian architect Charles Correa. The Adarsh House in Mumbai is a modernist residential building that integrates traditional Indian elements with contemporary design. Its use of courtyards, terraces, and passive cooling techniques exemplifies Korea's philosophy of contextual modernism, which respects local culture and climate. Fifth, Indian Museum, Kolkata, designed by British architect Walter Granville. The Indian Museum in Kolkata is one of the oldest museums in India and showcases a unique blend of neoclassical and modernist architectural styles. Its grand facade, ornate detailing, and innovative use of space make it a notable example of modernism in cultural heritage buildings. These examples demonstrate the diverse ways in which modernism has arrived in India, incorporating various design principles, materials, and technologies while responding to the unique cultural, social, and economic context of the country.
Thank you, Arian, for sharing those examples. Indeed, these buildings reflect the arrival of modernism in India and highlight the significant contributions of Indian and international architects in shaping the modern architectural landscape of the country.
I agree, modernism has brought a new wave of architectural design and construction techniques to India, transforming the built environment in many ways. Another notable example is the Akshardham Temple in Delhi, designed by Indian architect Bapps Swaminarayan Sansda. It is a modernist interpretation of traditional Indian temple architecture, with its grand scale, intricate detailing, and innovative use of materials.
Absolutely, Pawan. The Akshardham Temple is a remarkable blend of modernism and cultural heritage, showcasing how modern architectural ideas can be integrated with traditional elements. Another example is the High Court complex in Chandigarh, designed by Swiss-French architect Le Corbusier. It is a prominent example of modernist architecture in India, characterized by its functionalist design, use of concrete, and emphasis on open spaces.
Yes, Chandigarh is known for its modernist architecture, thanks to the visionary planning by Le Corbusier. Another iconic building in Chandigarh is the Capitol Complex, which includes the Secretariat, Assembly, and High Court buildings. Designed by Le Corbusier and his team of architects, it showcases modernist principles such as modular planning, rationalist design, and use of exposed concrete, making it a symbol of India's tryst with modernism.
Absolutely, Aryan. The Capitol complex in Chandigarh is a testimony to the influence of modernism in shaping urban planning and architecture in India. Another notable example is the National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad, designed by Indian architect B.V. Doshi, who was inspired by the principles of modernism and the traditional architecture of India. The campus showcases an innovative use of spaces, materials, and natural light, reflecting Doshi's human-centric approach to design.
Yes, the National Institute of Design is an excellent example of how modernism has influenced design education and institutions in India. Another building is the Indian Habitat Center in Delhi, designed by Joseph Allen Stein. It is an example of modernist architecture characterized by its functional design, use of exposed brickwork, landscape elements, making it a vibrant cultural and social hub.
Absolutely, Pawan. The Indian Habitat Center is a prime example of how modernism has influenced the design of public spaces and cultural institutions in India. Another notable example is the Jawahar Kala Kendra in Jaipur, designed by Indian architect Charles Correa. It is a unique fusion of modernist aesthetics and traditional Rajasthani architectural elements, showcasing how modernism can be adapted to local context and culture.
Yes, the Jawahar Kala Kendra is a remarkable example of how modernism has been interpreted in different regions of India, blending local traditions with contemporary design. Another noteworthy building is the IIM Ahmedabad, designed by American architect Louis Kahn. It is considered a masterpiece of modernist architecture, with its bold geometric forms, exposed brickwork, and emphasis on natural light, creating a harmonious integration of architecture and landscape.
Absolutely, Aryan. The IIM Ahmedabad is a prime example of how modernism has influenced institutional architecture in India, creating functional and aesthetically pleasing spaces for learning and innovation. Another notable example is the National Crafts Museum in Delhi, designed by Indian architect Raj Riwal. It is a modernist interpretation of traditional Indian architecture, with its earthy colors and courtyard.
Yes, the National Crafts Museum is a perfect example of how modernism can be integrated with traditional Indian architecture, creating a unique cultural space. Another noteworthy building is the Lotus Temple in Delhi, designed by Iranian architect Fariborz Sabah. It is a modernist marvel, with its striking lotus-shaped structure made of white marble, representing unity, purity, and peace, and its innovative use of natural light, creating a serene and contemplative space for meditation and prayer.
Absolutely, Pawan. The Lotus Temple is an iconic symbol of modernism in India, showcasing how contemporary architectural ideas can be expressed through innovative design and materials. Another notable example is the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad, designed by American architect Perkins Eastman. It is a state-of-the-art campus that embodies modernist principles such as sustainability, efficiency, and technology integration, creating a conducive environment for learning and research.
Yes, the Indian School of Business is a prime example of how modernism has influenced the design of educational institutions in India, incorporating global best practices into the local context. Another noteworthy building is the Infosys Technology Campus in Mysore, designed by Indian architect Hafiz Contractor. It is a modernist masterpiece, with its contemporary design, sustainable features, and efficient use of space, reflecting the changing landscape of the IT industry in India.
Absolutely, Aryan. The Infosys Technology Campus is a perfect example of how modernism has influenced the design of corporate campuses in India, creating vibrant and inclusive work environments. Another notable example is the National Museum in New Delhi, designed by Indian architect Charles Correa. It is a modernist interpretation of traditional Indian architectural elements, with its use of red sandstone, jali screens, and courtyards, creating a cultural and historical narrative within a modernist framework.
Yes, the National Museum is a prime example of how modernism can be infused with local context and heritage, creating a unique architectural expression. Another noteworthy building is the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport in Mumbai, designed by Indian architect Hafiz Contractor. It is a modernist marvel, with its sleek design, state-of-the-art facilities, and sustainable features, reflecting the changing face of transportation and mobility in India.
Absolutely, Pawan. The Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport is a prime example of how modernism has influenced the design of transportation infrastructure in India, creating efficient and iconic structures. Another notable example is the Indian Museum in Kolkata, designed by British architect Walter Granville, showcasing how modernist ideas were introduced in colonial India, blending British architectural influences with local materials and craftsmanship.
Yes, the Indian Museum is a historical example of how modernism has evolved in India over the years, influenced by various cultural, social, and political factors. It is fascinating to see how modernism has shaped the architectural landscape of India, from iconic landmarks to educational institutions, cultural spaces to transportation hubs, reflecting the country's pursuit of progress, innovation, and global connectivity.
Indeed, Aryan. The arrival of modernism in India has brought about significant changes in the field of architecture, pushing boundaries and challenging conventions. It has opened up new avenues for architectural expression, experimentation, and sustainability, while also engaging with local context, culture, and heritage. Modernism has influenced the design of buildings and spaces across India, leaving a lasting impact on the architectural legacy of the country.
Absolutely, Madhusudan. The examples of buildings we discussed today are just a glimpse of the rich and diverse architectural landscape of modernism in India. It is an ongoing process that continues to evolve and shape the built environment of the building.
In conclusion, the arrival of modernism in India during the late 19th and early 20th centuries marked a significant shift in the country's arts, literature, music, and architecture. Influenced by global developments and driven by various factors, modernism in India brought about a break from traditional norms, fostered experimentation, and embraced individualism and cosmopolitanism. While it faced resistance from conservative elements, modernism also led to a cultural renaissance, shaping the trajectory of Indian arts and culture in the 20th and 21st centuries, and leaving a lasting impact on the country's artistic, literary, and intellectual landscape.